Hey there, Addie here. Welcome to my YouTube channel. You may be wondering why I'm all glammed up like this. Well, I had a very special photo shoot earlier today. If you want to see the end photos and the end results of that, then follow me on my Instagram, which will be linked down below. Anyway, today I want to talk about something a little bit differently. The last two videos I made were more story times, telling my experience. This is another kind of experience video, but it's not necessarily a story time. There may be like little stories sprinkled in, but mostly it's just going to be me telling my experience of attending Catholic schools. Those of you who don't know, I was raised in the Catholic faith, and my parents were very adamant about making sure that my siblings and me had a strong Catholic foundation. So they sent us to Catholic schools. Now, just for privacy, I'm not going to mention any teachers' names or students' names or anything like that, but I will tell you about my experiences, the good, the bad, what I liked, what I didn't like. And this is not to come at Catholic schools or to come at public schools by any means. I think it's definitely an individual basis, whatever your child's needs are. I'm not saying this is why you should go to Catholic school or why you shouldn't. I'm just telling my story, my experiences, and in no way am I speaking for all students who have gone to Catholic schools. So that's out of the way. Let's get into the video. From age 5 to 17, K through 12, I attended Catholic schools. I actually attended 3 of them, 3 different ones at least. I attended one school, K to 5, another one, 6 to 8, and then the high school was its own school. So to start off, elementary school was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I loved my principal. She was actually a nun at the time until she died, which is another story in and of itself. But she was really great. She had this tradition actually of bringing us in, showing us a report card, saying like, oh my gosh, this looks good. I think you had a really good grade in this class, and it went really well. We also had these kind of start of the year picnics, which usually I think they were Labor Day weekend or the week before school started. She was always going to those. It was a great way for younger kids to meet current students and for current students to kind of get together, meet younger students, vice versa. It was a really good time. I loved it. I had some amazing teachers. They really laid that good foundation. And something I want to make a little debunking. I remember I had a friend, well actually a guy I had dated, who he learned I was in Catholic school and he thought I was super sheltered. Let me tell you, I could see where he would think that, and there is some truth to it. But by law, I did not just learn theology and God and Bible studies all the time. No. By law, I had to learn all of the basic subjects. I learned history, science, English, math, you name it. So anyway, elementary school went really, really well. There were some kids, as they got a little older, they started to get a little bit of an ego, which happens. I'm not gonna say any names here again, like I said, but it's understandable. Then I remember 5th grade, it was a small school. So that's the thing about Catholic schools or private schools is it is private. So private funding means no government money. So it was expensive, I'm not gonna lie. My elementary school, like I think K through 8, it was like $4,000 per year. So it ain't cheap. Keep that in mind if you want to send your children to Catholic schools. You are going to have to definitely make those decisions and make some sacrifices along the way. I remember in 5th grade, we got the news that the principal, the nun, we'll just call her Sister C for privacy reasons, she was not doing well. She ended up having pancreatic cancer, and it was really hard. Actually, that was the first funeral I went to where I actually knew the person. I mean, I went to like my dad's cousin's wake, but I don't really count that because I didn't know her I didn't really know her. But anyways, so that was really tough. She was staying in a hospice center in New Hampshire, so they ended up having the funeral in New Hampshire. All school was dismissed that day. It was a whole big thing. But the thing is, that nun, Sister C, she is the one who kept that school going. There are different kinds of Catholic schools. There's the diocesan ones and the parish ones. So what I mean by diocesan means they're run by the diocese. And if you're not familiar with the Catholic Church, what it is, it's basically kind of, think of it like a county in a state, where it's basically geographically a bunch of churches, and they are all under this one umbrella. So for example, there's the Diocese of Boston, Diocese of Salt Lake City, which basically covers all of Utah, Diocese of Providence, which is basically most, if not all, of Rhode Island. Anyway, there was that, and the thing was, for quite a number of years, I would say like maybe 2 or 3 years, the school was dying. And what I mean by that was not many students were coming. One, like I said, it was expensive, but another school opened, which was the place they went to middle school. And they offered things that my elementary school didn't. They had more activities, more sports, and for a lot of students and for mostly their parents, it was in a more convenient location for their kids to go to school, so they didn't have to drive like 40 minutes every day and back. Or if they couldn't drive, where the bus system was more local and they could just put their kids on the bus. But that school didn't have the family feel that my elementary school did. And again, I'm not bashing my middle school. It actually started off as just a K-5 school, my middle school, but then they added the middle school. It's a whole big deal. Well, not big deal. It was a whole ordeal. I'm not going to get into super detail. But like I said, my school was struggling. Parents actually offered to say, hey, we'll pay more tuition if that's what it takes to keep the school open, because it really was special. But the diocese, they were pretty adamant. Like, no, we're making some changes. And after the death of the principal, Sister C, they thought, well, she was basically the blood of the school, and now she's not there anymore. We can basically do what we want. So what they ended up doing was taking, from my old school, grades 6 through 8 out, so it became just a K-5, actually a pre-K-5 school, and then they put it in the new school, which was new at the time. I think by the time I started there, it was maybe 2 to 4 years old, so brand new. So that was the thing. When my elementary school first opened, it was the only Catholic elementary / middle school in the area. So this is where things, I'm going to get into more detail. The middle school, like I mentioned, didn't have that same family feel. I remember actually my 6th grade year, I was bullied by this girl. She said all this mean stuff to me, and the principal handled it really, really well. So I eventually told my mom in tears. I'm like, no, and I begged her, no, don't tell her, because it's going to make everything worse. She's going to think of me as like a snitch or something. But my mom's like, no, this is not tattling. This is a real thing, because you're obviously hurt by what she's saying. So the principal, she called this girl down to the office. Well, actually, we got a call in the classroom, and the teacher is like, hey, I'm not going to say names, but we'll just call her Layla. Layla, Principal M wants to see you downstairs. And of course, Layla, she was very confused, like, what did I do? And from what my mom told me, what the principal called my mom and told her the whole thing, was she had Layla in tears. Yeah. And by no means, I didn't want to hurt her or anything, but it was just the truth. She told this great lie, the principal. She said, hey, a boy in your class has been noticing the way you've been treating Addie, and it's got to stop. So, not gonna lie, we didn't become best friends after that by any means, but we remained cordial from then on. Like, we got along fine. I have no hard feelings towards her. I don't know what else she was dealing with, so I'm not gonna say anything bad about her. And again, remember how I kind of mentioned in elementary school when kids starting to get little egos? Well, that definitely takes flight in middle school. And I think in high school, this is when it really started to set in. So like I mentioned, because it's a private school, parents have to pay themselves. And what that means is a lot of the times these parents came from money, or they had a lot of money. They had their own businesses, they were lawyers, they were doctors, bankers. You get the idea. So they had a little bit of extra money than my family did. Now, my family, by no means, like, we weren't poor, not gonna lie about that, but we were not rich. And that's the thing. Kind of going back to middle school, I had this teacher, she would literally say, "You guys go to school here, you guys can afford it." Well, no, that's the thing I want to kind of debunk. Not every student who goes to a Catholic school or a private school is rich. Sometimes there are kids who are on scholarships. Like, I got a few scholarships and some financial aid from my church and a little bit from the school too, because we worked our butts off. Seriously, I remember my mom, she was a stay-at-home mom for a long time, but the high school was almost double the cost per year tuition than my middle and elementary school. So she got a part-time job, I got a part-time job to pay for extra things that I wanted. We stopped going on vacations. That's what I mean by, like I mentioned before, the sacrifices you have to make sometimes. I would get jealous a lot of the times because kids would come in, they had these really nice new iPhones or MacBooks, or we'd talk about like, oh yeah, for spring break, we're going to go on this cruise to Mexico or something. And I just couldn't afford that. And actually, some kids didn't even have jobs, which is, again, not bashing them. Every family's different. Maybe they had other things to deal with, but it just kind of irked me a little bit. And it took me a while to get over this, but my value does not come from how much money my or my family makes, what kind of computer I have, or what phone I have, by any means. So that's kind of the struggles I dealt with. Some of the good things about Catholic school was the fact that, like I mentioned, the family feel. You basically went to school with the same core, like 10, 15 people for many, many years. So I got to know quite a few kids, and I was friends with them. I went to their birthday parties, we hung out, we'd have play dates. It was a good time. And this is kind of like a good and a bad depending on the way you look at it. But Catholic schools, they really delve into some subjects. Talking to some of my friends who went to public school beforehand, or went maybe to different schools before, at least my high school, again, not speaking for all Catholic schools or all students, they really did go in depth. Just kind of, my brother, this middle school he went to was different than mine. He came back and he had religion homework, and just some of the questions were insane. They were basically like Boston College, Providence College, sort of Georgetown questions. They were just insane. But that's in a way a good thing, because you delve in a lot deeper than just scratching the surface. I remember my guidance counselor, in an interview that he did for my high school, he said, the teachers aren't just, all right, I'm going to say something to you and you say it back to me. I'm going to tell you something. Now, how do you interpret it? Or what do you say? Or what's your argument in this case? Which definitely helped in college, because there were some classes I took where it was, like, I remember my English teacher, she had these Socratic circles. Basically, it wasn't just raising her hand and answering questions. It was a conversation. We would all sit in a circle, literally, and talk about something like, say, whatever we were studying, like Shakespeare. Or we did this play, I don't know if you ever heard it, called A Dull House, where it's about this woman, she's married to her husband, and she kind of made some mistakes, and then she basically walks out on her family. Spoiler alert, sorry about that if you are reading it or wanting to read it. But anyway, that's a really good thing to have. There was also, like I said, because it was a Catholic school, that faith base. In high school especially, if there were, I mean, I'm sure it happened in elementary school, but high school is more memorable to me. If there were holy days of obligation, like Saints' Days, or like the Ascension, where Jesus' body and soul ascended into heaven, or Mary's Assumption, they would actually schedule around that. So we'd have maybe like an hour of a liturgy right in the auditorium. Or my freshman year, we were small enough to be in the library, which is really, really good. I think that really laid my faith quite a bit. And that was the thing when I went to college, was I knew I wasn't going to a Catholic college, just different reasons. I wanted to, I was accepted into some, but just talking with my dad, he didn't think it was the right decision for me. So, which was fine. Not bashing my college by any means. But like I said at the beginning of the video, there is some truth to this sheltered part where every day we started off with prayer. In fact, I didn't even know that students didn't start school with prayer in the morning until I was maybe like second grade. I thought everybody wore uniforms, which I think in other countries, like in Europe, they do, but in America, I know that's not the case. And yeah, this is kind of a rambly video. Like I said, it wasn't a sequential story time, it's just my experiences and me talking. And I would say that the teachers, because it's such smaller class sizes, they really got to know the students as people, not just that's Addie, she's a B student, or that's Jessica, she's failing. Just the grades. They actually knew us and what we liked, what our strengths were. And it's kind of embarrassing to say, but they even were plugged in some of the gossip of who was dating whom, who broke up with whom, who was fighting with whom. You get it. And yeah. And another kind of like, again, not to harp on the negative by any means, but kind of going back to the thing where kids were kind of came from money. I remember my junior and senior year, I was in the choir. We had this new choir director who wanted to take us on tour to New York City. So what we would do was we would see Broadway shows at night, eat at different restaurants, and then during the day we would sing for different schools in the upstate New York area. Those tours were not cheap. I think they ranged, on average, they were like $800 per student. So when I was 16, something I'm very proud of, I took $800 of my savings to go on that trip. Like, yes, they did do fundraisers where if you sold this many raffle tickets, then if you sold, let's say, $200 worth of raffle tickets, you get $200 discount off of your New York trip, or your spot in New York, which basically paid for the Broadway shows, your food, the hotel, the bus, the whole 9 yards. But my mom was she wasn't comfortable with the whole fundraising thing. She didn't want me going door to door. She didn't want me hitting up friends or family members, which I can understand why. I mean, if someone said to me when I'm like 10 or whatever, like, no, I don't want to buy raffle tickets, or no, I don't want to buy chocolate bars, I would be totally cool with that. Like, okay, thanks for your time. But my mom just didn't feel comfortable with it. So what she would do is we had to sell at least, I think, one book of tickets, which is like 10 tickets minimum, because we used that amount to pay for the prizes, the raffle prizes, which were things like tickets to a concert venue in the area. I think one year we gave away an iPad. One time we gave away an iPod Touch. And then of course, like, the third prize was the school basket, which had a bunch of school swag in it. Anyway, that's kind of my experience. Again, take this with a grain of salt. I'm not saying that every high school or every Catholic school is exactly like mine, but it's definitely something to keep in mind for sure. But to end this on a high note, I touched on it. Even though I was jealous of certain, especially girls, for having certain MacBooks or phones, or they were popular, I'm proud of myself and what I have accomplished today. I don't think I could have done it without my schooling and my education. Of course, my parents played a huge role, but focusing on school, it really did. It helped me with college, it gave me confidence, it gave me a good work ethic along with my parents. They helped with that, and it basically was the work ethic that brought me out here to Utah from Massachusetts. Thank you so much for listening to this story. This was a different kind of video, a different sort of format. I wanted to try it out because I told 2 story times back to back. This one, I just wanted to kind of share a part of me and why it's important. So thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like, comment down below. I would also appreciate if you would subscribe. That definitely helps out this channel. And let me know what other sort of videos you want to make. Any more story times, if I should do a Q&A, if I should... I have a couple ideas. Maybe if you want me to do kind of like an advice video about moving a long distance. Seriously, let me know. I would love to expand my horizons here. Definitely follow me down on my social media, which are linked down below. Follow me on my Instagram, my Twitter, my TikTok. I'm trying to be more active on TikTok. And have a great rest of your week.